Welcome to the KIX EAP Podcast, your monthly podcast with important leaders in education from Eastern Europe, Middle East and North Africa, Central Asia, and the Asia Pacific. I'm your host, Ryan Allen, assistant professor at Chapman University here in Southern California, and my own background is in international and comparative education. Let's start the show. Welcome back to the KIX EAP Podcast, and today we have Dr Shehzad Jeeva, director of the Aga Khan University Examination Board and an assistant professor of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences at the university. In the interview, we discuss his own educational trajectory, moving from the hard sciences to the field of education. Likewise, we further contextualize the education system in Pakistan and how his organization is attempting to move the sector away from rote memorization to a more hands-on critical thinking type of curriculum. Let's go to the interview. All right, welcome, Dr. Jeeva, to the KIX EAP Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. If we could maybe just jump into your background a little bit. You did a BA and then a master's degree in Pakistan, and then you did your PhD in the UK. So can you maybe talk a little bit about your educational background and how you sort of jumped from Pakistan to Cambridge University?
I'm delighted that you've selected me to be a part of this podcast. I would say it's a very exciting, it was a very exciting journey. And it all started, in my schooling days when I was in school. I went to a low-cost private school in Pakistan, and then went on to do my degree in science for the high schools, where we had to select, either you become or you want to be an engineer or a doctor. So, I was not sure what I really want to, or in which field I want to go into. And I was exploring more areas which would excite me. But, in my 12th grade, we have K-12 system in Pakistan, and then you enter university. So in my 12th grade, I read about organic chemistry, and I fell in love with that subject. And I went to my parents and I told them that, I don't want to become an engineer, and I want to do my PhD in organic chemistry. In Pakistan, the decision makers are usually parents. They decide you become a doctor or engineer. My parents, my father, during dinner time, he looked at me and said, "What about being an engineer?" And I said, I don't want to be, because, I want to do my PhD in organic chemistry. And he asked me why. And that was a very important question. And my response to him was that I want to know more about life through organic chemistry. He and my mom were not very sure that in which field I would go into, because in Pakistan, the profession of teaching is not considered to be very lucrative, and it's looked down upon. So they started calling a lot of people, relatives and people who had done the degrees in chemistry, and asked them to guide me if I'm thinking the right direction. At that time when I was 17 years old, believe me, every single person was saying, no, don't go for this field. You'll be called a chemist, you'll be selling medicine, or you'll be making medicine. And I said, no, I don't want to be a chemist or want to make medicine or sell medicine. I just want to explore this field and understand and comprehend the complexities of life. But I'm very grateful. I got support from my family, and they said, do what you are passionate about. And I went to public sector university in Pakistan. I did my BSc honors, which is a 4-year degree. And then I did 1 year of master's in organic chemistry. And then I decided I should do my PhD, not from Pakistan, but from outside Pakistan, to have much wider experience and exposure in the field of academia. I started applying and I received admission offer from Cambridge University to do my PhD. And I received 3 scholarships, partial scholarships, which paid for my tuition fees and accommodation. Um, and there I went to University of Cambridge, which was an amazing experience for me to see a very different approach towards education in itself. And it was there I came across uh, how they promote science learning in schools in the UK. And I got involved there. I was very much fascinated. And at that time, I asked myself this question: what if I was exposed to such an environment in Pakistan? Maybe my approach to science would be much more broadened and much more depth. I would have much more depth in it. Um, and then, after I finished my PhD, my PhD thesis received a Toby Jackman Prize for the best PhD thesis in chemistry in any subject, from St. Edmund's College. Uh, and then I went to University of York for my postdoc. And there again, I was again involved in this field of teaching as well. I was teaching undergrads in the laboratory as an instructor, and I was also involved in promoting science learning in schools. I used to be judge or interact with students. Then I went to Canada, McGill, for my another postdoc, and in 2009, I decided to come back to Pakistan. And my family is a joint family system. So to support the family, I didn't have any offer when I came. So I joined my father's business, which gave me a very, very good experience in terms of management, in terms of business, um, and that entrepreneurship skills developed at that point in time. It was around 5 years that I spent there with him. But meanwhile, I was also involved into teaching in school as a part-time teacher, and also developed or established a company to promote science learning in Pakistan. So I got involved in many projects, some mega project in Pakistan, where I was interacting with young students and promoting science learning. And to my surprise, even in the best of the best private schools in the country, um, students, those young children, were fascinated by the science around them. So my objectives at that time was not to make students, these young children, scientists, but to make them appreciate science around them.
Right.
And then in 2014, I was reached out, and then I joined. I got involved with the examination system of the country.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's. I think it's a familiar story where I study international students, and you leave your country, and it's a completely different experience, but something draws you back, something brings you back home, and to bring the skills that you had or the experiences that you had, because you want other people to have that, because not everybody would get to go to Cambridge or leave. So I think it's an important part of the story, and for a lot of people, I think that's something that they might be potentially grappling with. You mentioned you went to the examination board because you jumped from the hard sciences, you jumped from chemistry into maybe more of like education, or an area that maybe some might consider more of like a social science. So I'm wondering what maybe the difference is there, or what have you brought over, or is there a different way of thinking, or challenges that you've run into with working with different kinds of discipline potentially?
This is a question which people ask me every day. And they're very curious about what made me decide to move in this direction. One is I was always passionate about education itself, but then especially when I talk to young students who are thinking about different areas of specialities, And my advice to them is that if your degree helps you to comprehend complex information of life, if it is able to develop your different skill sets, then it prepares you for life. Those were the skills, I would call it 21st century skills. They were preparing me for that. And the academic rigor that it required, that discipline that it required from my side, it all helped me to move in this direction. So, for example, in chemistry, one of the things that, during my PhD, which I consciously know developed a lot, was my observation skills, my ability to think about new questions, my ability to solve problems, think critically, be more creative about it. So all these things help. And in chemistry, you work with big data as well. You try to interpret uh, and identify new molecules. So there are so many data that you work with. And in this field of examination where we are, it's an awarding body, Aga Khan University Examination Board. I'll talk more about it, what it is all about. But uh, in assessment, it's a lot about data, how you interpret, how you understand it, how you comprehend, and how you make decisions which are fair decisions, how you make decisions which are valid, how you make decisions which are reliable decisions. So even my work in the industry, when I worked for 5 years, that helped me to take risks, to take difficult, tough decisions, understand people. Uh, you know, in when I was in academia in my time at Cambridge and York and McGill, I did realize that it's a very secure world that I'm living in, and at times it was very difficult for me to make those tough decisions, to be very bold. And working there, made me much more bolder. So now I'm not, it's a private examination board, but I work a lot with the government. I have some government positions that I hold. Uh, so all those experience helps you to develop. But the key point that I think young students or young scholars should think about is whatever degree or academic program you're into, you have to take it from a lens where it helps you to comprehend complex information of life. It also helps you to develop key skills, and one has to be conscious that it is being developed, uh, and in how you can think about where your weaknesses are, and you continue to work on it and improve those. And that's how it helped me when I work in this field of examinations and assessment in the country at national level.
Mm. Yeah, let's jump into that because you shared with me some interesting videos, and I'll share those in the show notes because I think our audience would be quite interested. And I mean, we in these videos we see students sort of making rockets and hands-on learning and this kind of thing. So can you maybe tell me a little bit about the examination board? I think somebody in the video also mentioned, it's an assessment, but it's also teacher material, it's also curriculum. There's sort of all these different things. So can you kind of talk about what that is and what it looks like?
Yeah, like before I talk about the examination, Aga Khan University Examination Board itself, I think it's important for me to give you some overview of the education crisis in the country. We've got around 23 million children who are out of school, who've never seen schools. Our dropout ratio is very high from primary to elementary school and then to high school. And we have very low percentage of students who enter university. The country is plagued by issues of corruptions, non-transparency issue, and when you come into the area of academic content, uh, in Pakistan, there's a culture of rote learning, memorization of the textbook. And one of the major reasons for this is that the assessment component of the country has been very weak and nobody focused in this area. So the country developed curriculums. We are again, this country is developing or revising a new curriculum, which is called Single National Curriculum. Uh, Even the last curriculum, which was developed in 2006, was very good. However, it was not implemented in its letter and spirit. The benchmark of the assessment, the examinations, was to memorize the content of the textbook. It would ask you exactly the same thing, and you were expected to write exactly the same words of the textbook. And everybody knew if you do and write this way, you'll get good marks, you'll get good grades. And because these high stake examinations determines your promotion to the next level, so even teachers in the classroom tries to achieve those benchmarks, those standards, and prepare students in that direction, because they know that the promotion to the next level is dependent on the scores, and even the teachers' appraisals are dependent on how students would be performing. So this vicious cycle continues. So the entire education system, became plagued with this rote learning culture in the country, and there was no approach towards conceptual learning. Even I am the product of the same system. So then in mid 1990s, group of educationists came to the Aga Khan University, which is one of the best, rather I would say best university in the country. And they proposed and requested if Aga Khan University can establish a private examination board which can do assessment, bring high quality assessment, which can bring in transparency, which can bring fairness, which can bring good quality assessment, which is reliable, valid, and fair, and that can also help to improve teachers' quality. Because if you have a good benchmark, then teachers would follow those benchmarks, as they know that for them to succeed, both students and teachers needs to be aligned with those standards. Then in 2002, this examination board was established through the ordinance or the act of the government, the federal government of Pakistan. And in 2006, we took our first examinations. Um, we had very unique features that, we took the national curriculum of the country and developed our own examination syllabus based on the national curriculum of the country. And the essential features were that each learning outcomes that were given to the students, we broke them down to make it more simplified. It's not, so it's not confusing for the teachers, that is where to start and where to end. And then each learning outcomes were tagged with different cognitive level. So those were given to students. The test specifications were available for students and teachers as well. And it really helped both teachers, students, and even the exam developers in the examination board of Aga Khan University to develop a very comprehensive examinations which can assess multiple cognitive abilities of the students and can develop a very balanced examination paper. Um, then we also had, we were the first one, I think, in Asia to start with the electronic marking system. Uh, that again is very unique in the country. In addition to this, we consciously made efforts to support the teachers. We knew that from the beginning that the teachers were also coming from the same old system, who studied in their schooling through that rote memorization culture. So we would need to provide all the support to the teachers where they can understand what those standards and benchmarks are. And there were a lot of trainings done. Then I think our previous speaker, who also had his education in his Masters of Education from Pakistan, which is from Aga Khan University Institute of Education Development, They also played a key role in developing our syllabus in 2004 and 5, and help the teachers uh, where they are able to understand those standards and the academic rigor that is required. Uh, we also develop departments of research so that we can make informed decisions. With all these, when we talk about the operations side of it, when we conduct examinations across the country, in our country, unfortunately, cheating is rife in examinations. It's very common. And AKU examination board came out to be that examination board which was considered to be the most transparent, which does not tolerate the wrongdoings or in the exams. uh, we have our examination centers where each exam halls are even monitored through CCTV, and our approach is not to keep an eye on the students, it's on to keep an eye on our staff, whether they are following the SOPs, they are doing a good job or not. So that is the philosophy where we ensure that we are not threatening the students, we are not creating anxiety among our students. Rather, we are more supportive to ensure that students are able to show their true potential in the exams so that their performance is not, compromised.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things that uh, is kind of curious. You see what's happening. I mean, I'm just an outsider, so I look, the materials that you provided, and it's sort of goes back to that old like John Dewey type of thinking of like education and using your hands and getting an experience, and maybe it's some of the things that you even mentioned in your own life that you sort of said, oh, why didn't I do this earlier? Think about this earlier. But the other side of that is, well, it sounds like not everybody is on board potentially with these types of changes or these types of this type of exam system. So what is the pushback, or why would some say, what, the old way of doing it, that we still need to keep that? Like what maybe is the argument that they would say?
Um, a very good question. And the answer to this is that for any kind of a revolution in education, it takes time. This examination board got established in 2006. We first took our exams in 2006, and it's been like few years now, less than 15 years, that we've been in the field. Um, so I would say that the success that we've seen so far, in terms of the being a change agent, or in terms of changing the mindset, is that now the government of Pakistan realize and recognize the importance of assessment and examination in the country. Uh, they've involved me in many areas. I've last year I was a chairman of one of the very powerful organization of the federal government, been part of the National Curriculum Council, Sindh Curriculum Council, been part of more than 30 government committees where I support them. And they all realize that now, yes, this is the way forward. We have one province, like a state in the country, which is called Sindh. The Sindh High Court last year gave a judgment that all the examination boards in the state of Sindh, or the province of Sindh, should follow the Aga Khan University Examination Board's benchmark. This is a very significant achievement, because yes, the Aga Khan University examination may be able to directly impact a small minority of the population, but for us, we think our indirect impact is far much more larger when we interact with the government, when we help them introduce better policies and help them develop those capacities. Like, you know, my board is involved directly with Balochistan province, which is another state, where we develop capacity of their assessment bodies. Uh, our Aga Khan University Institute of Education Development has been extremely effective in the past many years now, I would say, where we can see those graduates are now part of the government. They are working for the government right now, those graduates, where the ministers are taking advice from them to
Mm,
make key decisions. So but while all these good things are there, there is a huge drawback that we see is the capacity issue at large. You've got millions of teachers, you've got millions of students in the country, then you've got out of school children issues as well. We don't have enough schools in the country. So uh, the country tries, when they are trying to make decision, their objective is to make sure that everything changes for everyone at the same time.
mm,
And I am not in favor of that decision because it is not possible in realistic point of view. You need to move phase wise, and that's where you can change the mindset and the approach. Because once you have a successful story that you can showcase within the public sector, and we have shown when we have some public sector schools who are with us, they are competing against private sector schools, and they're even doing better than private schools, which are
mm,
very good private schools. So you saw that change that happened, and I believe in 5 to 10 years down the line, things will be much better in terms of the field of assessment at the public sector, where people will demand from the government that this is the direction that we want to go to. So it is a slow process. We are very conscious of that. And one has to be patient because you can't change everything uh, for everyone at the same time.
mm. Yeah, you mentioned something kind of interesting. It's part of a change is not just implementing it, but it's actually getting people to buy into it. And one of the things that was mentioned, at least in some of the material, was that I think it was from maybe even a parent who said, this material comes from people that are from Pakistan that have education here and that went to the same kinds of schools that they're trying to change and that live in our communities, rather than people coming in who are from international agency or from another country or something like that. So, how can you talk about how important that was, that it came from sort of a domestic push and a domestic university connection as well?
So one, I think, approach to look into it is that a university plays a very important role, because you have great scholars in the university who can give their very strong input in developing contents or philosophy itself. Second is that you do get people. In Pakistan, we get a lot of people coming from different parts of the world who contribute in improving the education sector of the country. Um, some of them have been brilliant, and we are grateful. And some of them, I would say that because they don't understand the relevance, the contextual, the cultural aspect. Uh, so whatever suggestions or recommendations that comes from them uh, fails to be implemented because it is not relevant to our society. In many meetings within the government, when I sit and talk, a lot of people give me examples of Finland. And I said, they're doing a brilliant job. They've shown the world that their system works better. But, you can't expect to take the same model and bring it over here. One size fits all doesn't happen. We need to look into the great points, the great decisions that were taken in Finland or USA or Canada or UK, and try to bring it over here and think from a cultural, contextual, and relevance point of view, and develop a model which is most suitable for the country. Uh, Unfortunately, in Pakistan, we look at the West and we say West is the best. And yes, take it from them, but we have to be very cognizant of the fact that whatever we do take, it has to be relevant so that it is implemented more successfully. And we have shown that for the last 12, 15 years that this model has been working. And as I said, the government has now recognized AKU Examination Board as the model examination board for the country.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think on this podcast, definitely we're trying to figure out how we can really think about local context, and that's why we want speakers like you and our other guests to really talk about what's going on the ground and what we can learn from your experience and your education setting. I think maybe the final question. I know this has been something that you've been working on, trying to figure out like how to manage everything under the circumstances of COVID, when maybe things aren't online or some people don't have access to digital technologies. So can you kind of maybe talk about that project or those ideas that are sort of that you're working on right now?
Yeah, COVID was has been a big disaster globally, and I think it is not only Pakistan which has faced those challenges. We're all in it together. But again, the important thing is what kind of decisions we have to take based on our own reality is very important. Um, Majority of our student population in Pakistan comes from middle or low socioeconomic background. So expecting that every child will have a device, expecting every child will have a connectivity, I think it's false. We in Pakistan mostly we have a joint family system where we have 10 to 12 family members living in one house, and for a child to study, they need some privacy as well, and you don't get that. So one has to manage all these things. We've been lucky from AKU Examination Board's perspective is that while we know that we are small in terms of number of students and schools in the country, though we are spread around in different parts of the country, um, we have engaged with our schools and teachers and students throughout this crisis. Last year, when COVID hit Pakistan was in March. And that is a time when all schools have completed their curriculum and are preparing for exams or tests. Um, so because things were not good in terms of COVID spread in the country, uh, the government decided to cancel the examinations.
Mhm.
And they, as a chairman of Interboard Committee of Chairmen, which is a part of the Ministry of Education at federal level, I was given the task of how do we move forward, how do we promote students, and what would be the steps then onwards. Um, so I, along with my team, my colleagues, worked together, and also a few members of the government bodies to develop promotion policy guidelines. In my examination board, uh, key role were played by Dr. Naveed Yusuf, who's the Associate Director of Assessment and Research, and Hanif Sharif, who's Associate Director of Operations. They played a huge role in terms of analyzing things to develop this policy to promote students without exams. So what we did is we had previous data of the students, how they performed in the previous grade, and we used a predictive analysis to see how previous cohorts had performed in a grade level higher than they are currently in, and predicted for, I think, for the last 3 years of around more than 1 million students. And based on those evidences, we gave promotion policies for the students to promote to the next level. And that is for grade 9, 10th, 11th, and 12th, where students appear for high stake examinations. This decision turned out to be very good for the entire country in the sense that there was no litigations for any examination boards in the country. We have 33 government examination boards, and who took that decision of promoting students with those guidelines. And there was no litigations by any students that they thought that this is an unfair decision for them. For us, it was very important that our decisions that we take should be fair for everyone and has to show equity for all, regardless from any province students are coming from, regardless of either they're coming from rural or urban or even remotest part of the country. Then the challenge that we had in the COVID time, because schools, we knew because of COVID, may shut down for a certain duration and will open again. We looked into how many academic days students would have, and based on that suggested, let's trim the curriculum in a way that for the next academic year, we can assume that students would be able to complete this trimmed curriculum or reduced curriculum or condensed curriculum. We call it rationalized syllabus. And we decided that in normal conditions, students are able to complete their syllabus by March, end of March. This time, we will give them additional time to complete their syllabus by end of June. And we'll take our exams then onwards. We changed the modality of assessment a little bit, where we made sure that any, like for example, we can't do marking hall together because of COVID issues. SOPs has to be followed. So we moved in the direction of the exam has to be completely MCQ based, multiple choice questions. Practical examination of science, we changed into alternative practicals. But for all those things, all support system were given to the schools, the teachers, and the students on a periodic level. The support system was there. And one important thing was that when the academic year started in August 2020, schools had the syllabus and they knew what the expectations would be for 2021. So they knew in which directions they were going. Unfortunately, at the government public sector, those decisions were not taken and things got delayed. And right now, still we are deliberating whether exams will happen, how it will happen. It's a chaos right now. A lot of people have really commended Aga Khan University Examination Board for having a good foresight and taking a better decision. I won't say it's the right decision. Time will tell, but it's definitely a better decision that we took for our students and stakeholders.
Right. I think it's a good point of that. We're trying to do our best, but it's all unprecedented. So everything we're making is in some ways kind of a guess, and I know you're just trying to hope that it works out, and but we won't know until COVID is and the results of COVID and this type of thing. We'll see in a few years or even 10 years down the line.
Absolutely, because see, we can't, if we even think that let the students repeat the year next year, we have a huge backlog. While right now, at present, we are thinking that in the exam centers, when students would be coming, they have to follow SOPs. We don't want to have high student population in one center. If we let all the students who are supposed to appear for exams this year to also appear in the next year exams with the students in 2022, we won't be able to manage it. And we don't know how COVID behaves. I hope not. What we see, unfortunately, what has happened in my neighboring country, India, it's a it's a it's a huge disaster there. It's really sad to see. But unfortunately, like God forbid, if something happens like this in Pakistan next year, you won't have exams then. You can't bring all the students together. We can't go on to online examination facilities, as I said. We don't even have proper electricity in the country. You know, Connectivity issues are there, devices issues are there. Uh, if you let students do online examinations, it creates a unique anxiety, of exams, which we don't know. So how can we be sure that those exams would be fair for those students or not? So we need to be very cognizant
Right.
of those, possibilities that could arise. So uh, I've been advising the government to close this current academic cycle ASAP, so that we can start thinking about developing strategies, identifying those risks for the next academic year, and make our plannings for that.
Well, it's a somber end, but at least the sector has someone like yourself, who really cares and who knows and who's really focused on the students and the teachers and the system. So, Dr. Jeeva, thank you for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing, the results and how sort of this plays out over the next couple of years, and maybe have you back one of these days in the future potentially. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
And this concludes our KIX EAP podcast, which is released every first Wednesday of the month. Of course, the opinions expressed on the KIX EAP podcast are solely those of the host and the guest. The KIX EAP podcast is made possible by KIX, which stands for Knowledge and Innovation Exchange. KIX is an initiative of the Global Partnership for Education. Globally, KIX is administered by the International Development Research Center in Canada. NORAG in Geneva hosts one of the 4 regional hubs of KIX. Thanks for listening. Find us on the NORAG or GPE KIX websites. You can subscribe to the KIX EAP podcast, newsletter, and webinar series, and also learn about KIX global or regional projects. Additionally, you can subscribe directly on Spotify or SoundCloud to receive notifications of the new monthly podcast episodes.